I need it. It's too far.
Hello, and welcome to the Unsolved Mysteries and Paranormal Strangeness Hour, where we delve into the world of spirituality, the paranormal, and all things beyond the tangible. I'm Kata, an ordained spiritual healer, shaman, priestess, minister, spiritual life coach, paranormal investigator, and photographer with a passion for exploring the unknown and helping others to heal. In each episode, we'll discuss topics like shadow work, generational trauma, mental health issues, domestic abuse, UFO phenomenon, miracles, and the supernatural. I will share my experiences as a shaman and oracle card reader and invite guests to share their perspectives and insights. Join me as we explore the mysteries of the universe and discover the miracles that lie within us. Get ready for a journey into stories of the strange and unusual, creepy paranormal experiences, self-discovery, and growth as you join me and special guests on my podcast. Please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and share my videos. Thank you.
Welcome to the Unexplained Mysteries and the Paranormal Hour. I'm your host, Khata Martinez, and this is my sister, Diana Slater, who's going to be chatting with us as well.
Everybody. Nice to be here.
Yes. So our topic for discussion is haunted objects, and they can be anything. I've chosen haunted dolls, plus a personal experience at an antique shop in Kirkland that I'm going to share after a little while. And Dinah's going to share some of her experiences as well. So I'm talking about the La Isla de las Muñecas, and this is the island of the dolls, which is in Mexico City. And there's some background history that I'm going to read to you so that you'll get a better idea of what I'm talking about. Well, before I go on though, the credits are going to go to Expedition X with Josh
Gates. Yeah.
Gates. Yes, Josh Gates.
Very familiar with him.
Oh, he's been around a long time with his show. He's got some pretty cool stuff that he talks about. And he has two assistants, and their names are Phil Torres, who is a field biologist, and Jessica Schobot, who's a paranormal research. And they've been on they've gone traveling around for Josh, and they go to different weird places. It's a really cool show. If you've never seen it, you might tune into it. So this episode is about the haunted island of the dolls, or the dolls, Isla de las Muñecas. And it's season 1, episode 3, and they called it Terror on Doll Island. So to begin, the background history on this, and this is a true story, it goes back about 60 years, and to when a man named Julian Santana Barrera became the caretaker of Doll Island. And that is located in the channels of Xochimilco, Mexico City. In the 1950s, dolls started showing up on the island, and he was unsure as to who started taking them there and hanging on trees and such. The story goes that a young girl drowned in that canal flowing by the island. Julian found her floating in front of his island. Next to her was a doll. He pulled her out, and he pulled the doll out too. He claimed that he had heard the girl crying out, "I want my doll," and it terrified him. So he made a small shrine in her honor, and he hung that doll inside the shack in hopes it would appease the spirits. Tourists who come to the island, they always bring dolls with them, and they hang them up on the trees, and they place them wherever they feel that is best, because they also too believe in the superstitions that perhaps it's going to appease the spirit. And there's a malevolent spirit on this island. And that has been passing with time, it's been getting a lot darker. That's what they're saying. So I was looking a little further into it and trying to understand what was going on. And the Aztecs, I got my little notes here. The Aztecs inhabited a pyramid near the Isla de las Muñecas, and the name of the pyramid is Cerro de la Estrella Pyramid Complex. Now, every 52 years, the Aztecs conducted sacrifices there, offering a still beating human heart of the sacrifices that they offered, which were generally others that were not of the Aztec. They weren't Aztec, and they were either troublemakers or they were probably some of the Spaniards who came and started causing all the horrible things that they did, the atrocities. So they sacrificed these people, keeping their heart, and offered it as to the gods. They believed it was to keep the sun shining on their Aztec empire. In the 1970s, the water from the canals, Xochimilco, was diverted to the canals of Mexico City. Under the pyramid, there are miles and miles of rainwater and runoffs that flow into the many canals into Mexico City, including the island along the island of the Dolls. The Aztecs performed brutal sacrifices there within the tunnels, and the water from there feeds the canals that go by into Mexico City and alongside that island. So thinking about that, they performed all these sacrifices and the blood is spilling into the canals, and this is under the pyramids. So, and those canals snake into various, there was maybe 5, 6 different canals that flow into Mexico City. So if you think about the energy from those sacrifices and the people who died, that goes into the water and the energy is created. And water anyway, it's known that spirits can travel by water, and it's not a good idea. Like if you buy a house, you want to hope that there's no water, a stream or spring running under your house, because then it'll create a lot of paranormal activity in your home. So I don't know if many people know about that, but those that are in the field, they do know that that's what usually happens because of a lot of crazy activities in the house. So one of the theory as to they were thinking people were hallucinating and that they were thought they were seeing spirits or whatever on the island. And so one of the theory was that there's toxic methane gas that bubbles up in the canals, and this can cause hallucinations and even death. Yeah. Well, Phil Torres, during that show, he took a sample of the water for testing. And so he sent that off while they were still there. So some of the background history, and this is a true story, and it goes back about 60 years to when this man, Don Julian Santana Barrera, he became the caretaker of the Doll Island. And that is located in the channels of Xochimilco, Mexico City. In the 1950s, dolls started showing up on the island, like I said. And the story goes that a young girl drowned in that canal that flows by the island. Julian found her floating in front of his island. Next to her was the doll. Yeah, so he pulled her out, and the doll too. And I think I already said that already. But from that point, the activity continued. And so the energy is there. They're saying that it's a lot of the spirits of the dead that are connected within those canals, and that's causing a lot of the activity. So in 2001, Julian died as he was fishing, and he suffered a heart attack. Some thought that he had gotten scared by perhaps the little girl showing up and trying to pull him into the water, or some other spirit maybe wanted to take
Cool.
revenge or something. So he fell into the water, the exact same place where the young girl had drowned. Rogelio Sanchez, who is nephew of Don Julian, he is now the caretaker of the island, and he only allows a few people to go onto the island after hearing about how many people were being hit by negativity when they were there on the island.
And that's well documented, even in other
Yeah.
shows on this very same island.
Right.
You just
So
want to away.
while they were on the island, Phil and Jessica, and of course the cameraman, there was various issues that they were experiencing. Malfunctions and glitches to the cameraman's equipment started happening shortly after they were there, and within the first 5 minutes, the cameras all shut down. Even being fully charged, they were shut down. That happened at the same time that Jessica experienced a breakdown. She became very emotional when she first stepped into the shack where they had the original doll from that girl, the little girl. And as soon as she stepped in, they had the camera pan on her, and you could see her she was starting to shake, and then she kind of turned her face away from the camera, and they asked her, "Jess, are you okay, Jessica?" And she goes, "No." And she's about to start bust out crying. She goes, I got to step outside. And so she walked out, and she's practically in tears. So she walks by the cameraman, and, "Are you okay?" And, "No, I'll be right back. I'll come back in. I just have to go over here for a few minutes."
I don't blame her. I wouldn't want to go back in there.
Oh, heck yeah. I mean,
especially
I've felt that myself in some different places that I've been to. It's creepy. And it's not her emotions. She was picking up on the sadness of the little girl, whoever it was, and the other spirits that are hanging around, which are lost souls. So she said, excuse me, she stated that she became sobbingly sad while inside the shack where that doll belonged to the drowned girl.
Right.
And so it took her several minutes before she went back on camera and went back into the shack. And then some of the disturbances experienced there, they heard whispering. A doll said what sounded like "ayúdame." That means "help me." There's a dark, malevolent presence, and it has been increasing over the years because, well, you got a lot of people coming to this island, and if they're, what's the word? If they're fearful at any time or what have you, vulnerable, that's the word. If they're vulnerable, they're going to get hit by the negative energies that are all around, and they drain the people of their energy who end up like Jessica, and they will scare them to bejeebies, and then they take their energy from that. So it took her some time to, get herself together. So I know that part.
Right.
So
on the difference between Phil and Jessica is, for the point of the show is he's there to be sciencey. He's supposed to debunk everything. He doesn't believe it.
Yeah,
So
logical
you need
mind.
that skeptic versus Jessica, who's already been a paranormal investigator and she believes everything. So she's kind of open. So she was open to receive those feelings. And
it shook her. It shook her to the core.
It shook her.
She wasn't expecting it, and she had never experienced it before. She said in any other place that she'd been, and we've seen plenty of their shows, and I've never seen her react like that. So that was a trip. Excuse me. So a camera light in the shack turned on by itself. Like she was asking, "Is anybody here?" Words to that effect. And so that and she calls out for Phil, and he was outside with what's the guy from Ghost Hunters?
Oh, Jason from Taps.
Jason from Taps, right?
I don't know his last name.
He
came onto the island to kind of help.
Yeah.
Okay, because
he kind of talked the nephew into letting him go onto the island because he didn't want to have them there because he's so concerned that the more people come, the darker it gets there. So anyway, so Jessica sat down during that second tried to communicate with the spirits, and then she heard a doll say, "Mama." And that would freak me out too. Oh,
bye. I'm out. No way.
And it's really worth watching. It's a really good show, and it's worth watching. And I'm gonna put the links down at the bottom. Or it's Expedition X with Josh Gates, and it's on Discovery Channel. It's season 1, episode 3, and you should watch the full episode. It's really worth watching. It's a lot of fun. So at the end of the episode, they got the test results back from the water that Phil had sent off, and the water from the water from the canal showed the levels of methane gas weren't high enough to cause hallucinations. So those who go to the island and have these experiences, they're not hallucinating. It is the real deal. And with so much concentrated energy, dark energy like that, especially that came from the pyramids and those sacrifices.
You can imagine.
Yeah, you're going to experience that. Can you answer that?
Well,
Monica,
is it accessible to visit? Can anyone go?
Try to communicate with
to me. There are little boats that you can just rent to go there, but to actually debark and get onto the island, you need the permission ahead of time from them.
You have to get permission.
So
it's not that easy. And he's kind of put the kibosh on it for letting a lot of people go, like I said. But he's let a lot of different shows go on there, so they got to be, giving him some money for allowing it, and that's cool. That's all right. So the haunted dolls.
Yeah, it's scary.
The haunted dolls are scary. Excuse me. So anything can be haunted or have attachments.
Yeah.
Depends on the history and its particular situation. Masks or soldier uniforms, rocking chairs, even mirrors and china sets, which reminds me of this incident that had happened. Well, about 3 weeks ago, I went to this native art retail store in Ashland. We're in Oregon, Southern Oregon. And so this place has beautiful, beautiful native art and you name it, jewelry and little dolls and all sorts of things. Beautiful. The Pendleton blankets, what have you. And there's masks on the walls too. Well, there's one mask in particular when I was there. And he was talking away to my friend Ray, who went with me, and I was standing there looking up at this mask. And I had seen it before because that was like the second or third time I had been into that shop. It was a dark mask. It was big. It was really big. And it was it was a black face mask. It had hair, kind of hair, but I think it was like maybe horsehair. I don't know. And it looked kind of thick, like horsehair would be. But anyway, I'm standing there and I'm getting this weird energy coming from this mask. And I turn around and I look at, I forget his name, but the guy that owns the shop. I said, so who's that up there on the wall? Who's that mask? What does that mask represent? And so he told me the name, but I can't tell you because it was very native. And if I had written it down, I might have been able to say it, but I don't know. But I said, well, this thing is giving off all this energy and is really creeping me out. And he goes, oh, I know. He says, when I first hung that up there, and then I, went about the business, and through the day I'm walking around, but I noticed that mask's eyes were following me in this shop. I said, what?
Creepy.
Mask's eyes are following you. And I'm going, oh, no. And he's going, no, I'm serious. He said, so I was like that for several days. And then I finally said, I can't handle this. This thing's watching me everywhere I go. And that's God. So he says, I got up there and there's this little string hanging from the bottom of the mask, and he pulled it. He said, and that shuts their eyes, and I was good after that. So now it doesn't watch me.
Yeah.
Hey, and I don't know where that mask came from, but it's.
I bet he's going to do a fire sale on that mask just to get it out.
I don't know. He said he's had it in there for quite a while. I don't think anybody wants to buy it. It's kind of creepy. And yes, please share the link. Oh, you bet. It'll be on the bottom of the description of the show. So Diana's going to tell you about personal haunted object stories, and then we'll continue on from there. So go right ahead, Diana.
Well, I happen to have a couple of stories, and actually I have one that's even before these two, because now we're talking about masks. And I used to work in Seattle, high-rise building, modern. We're a stock brokerage company. So, you wouldn't think of any kind of spirits being in there, and they really weren't. However, our new branch manager came in and he immediately decorated his office with all of these African masks and different types all over. That was what he liked. And he had quite a collection. So you would go in there, we'd just be talking to him, getting something signed and look around and go, oh, okay, whatever. So he was kind of like a woo-woo branch manager. So he decided that he wasn't feeling right, and he wanted to have a feng shui professional come in and arrange his office so that it would have the maximum effect for business. And so if you're not familiar with the art of feng shui, it is based on principles of increasing the qi or slowing down the qi if it's too fast, which is an energy that permeates everywhere. And so he decided, I'm going to call this person in. So she comes in and she's looking around and she says, look, face your desk to the door. You never have your back to the door. Be sure and soften the edges and get some plants in here and whatever. But then she starts looking at the masks, and she went around the room and she pointed to quite a few. She said, though, that one needs to go. That one needs to go. So when she was done, he probably had about 15 masks up to start. But then at the end of the feng shui session, she only let him have about 5 of them that I guess she must have felt were benign or good for him, and the other ones were not. So I always thought about that and said, oh, that's kind of interesting. But in any case, as soon as we got here, we moved to Southern Oregon in 2016. Yeah. And we live outside of Jacksonville, Oregon. And Jacksonville is a noted cute little charming town. They do have a lot of ghosts because they have a lot of history. There's a lot of gold rush history. Yeah. It's the end of the Oregon Trail pretty much. So you had a lot of immigrants coming in to help work the gold mining fields. Right. Because that was discovered in the mid 1800s. And then of course it went gangbusters. So the Chinese would come up and work the mines. And so when the gold busted out and they didn't have any more income, they took up and left, and they had their own little mini Chinatown right above the hill where the Brit concert area is. Oh, okay. So many of those leftovers, the china, the personal items that they just couldn't take with them, migrated into this one little antique shop downtown Jacksonville. It's no longer there. But so we walked in and just to investigate all the little cute shops, and that one was good. And it had some nice pieces. But we went all the way to the back of the shop because you kind of felt drawn there a little bit. Yeah. Going, what's over there? Something is like calling to you. And so we go and we step down into the back room, and it was all of the local Chinese porcelain and all of their items that they left behind. And couldn't put your finger on it, but you just felt this dense air and this darkness. And we said, okay, we're turning right around. And it wasn't just me independently, my sister Monica. And
I was there too.
They went in there going, oh, there is something there. I don't know what it is. And we really said, okay, we don't need to buy anything from there. So out we hop. And that was like the first time I ever experienced something like dark from just an
it was
object, or
it was
even
a very heavy energy that
or even a room.
was not
In the
cool.
same area, we're just a little bit west of Medford. There is also another antique shop. And of course, I like to go there. I love Northwest native jewelry. And so I knew that they had a room in the back that had artifacts. It has masks, canes, carved baleen whale things, things made out of for cedar hats from the Northwest natives. And they have a lot of jewelry in there. So I went in there to take a look, maybe 4 weeks ago. And there was immediate darkness. There's a heavy air. It was stale anyway, but it was a heavy feeling air. Even though there was a couple of windows there, there should have been light coming in. It just felt dark. And as I walked around the counters, and it was really almost claustrophobic, and I'm looking at the jewelry, but I'm looking at the masks on the wall, and I'm looking at the artifacts. And I just said, I don't want anything in my house that I buy from here to come home with me, even if I just loved the piece and it was a great price. So I hot-footed it out there. Kat says, hey, you could probably cleanse it. I don't know. What do you think, Kat?
Well, if you found a piece of jewelry, say it was turquoise, a beautiful turquoise bracelet or whatever, and you really wanted it, despite the energy of the place, it can be blessed. You can purchase it, and then as soon as you walk out of the shop, it's going to be hit by the sun anyway. Hopefully there's sunshine. But when you get to the house, because then you can excuse me, you can use sage and sage the piece. You can wash it real gentle. The flowing water always is a blessing for that sort of thing. And you put it out in the sun and let the sun, and even a full moon will clear and cleanse any kind of negative stagnant energy. I've got a drum, you can use the drum and beat that drum, and it clears energy, negative energy, anything that's stagnant or stale. And see, Monica's been to she remembers that spooky shop. Yes. So it can be, if you really want a piece or a whatever, the jewelry or a piece of furniture, you could do that. But I think the jewelry would be easier to cleanse rather than a piece of furniture, because I'm very sensitive myself. I can't sit on anybody's chair, for instance. Somebody who's in a lot of pain and they sit in that particular chair all the time, and they get up and they, go away or go outside or whatever. And then you take that moment to sit down on the chair. Oh, there's a place for me to sit. I feel the energy right away. So it dependent on the person who's been sitting in the chair, whether they're healthy or not, or if they're a negative type of person, you'll feel it if you're open to that sort of thing. If you're empathic, let's say.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't buy a piece of furniture. No, there's too many instances. Well, what's the name? John Sappis. Well, he walks out of those places with dressers and whatever, because they hold a negative dark energy, and nobody wants it in the house.
Would you buy that doll in that antique mall that you went to?
Oh my God. So there was this antique shop. Thanks for reminding me. We lived in a Seattle area, and we were there for 27 years. And the girls were always traveling around, going different places. And Monica and her husband lived in Kirkland. I was reading the comment right there. And she was telling, there's this really cool, big antique shop. Let's go check it out. And so it goes to cats. I have cats, and they like to get in the middle of everything. So we go into this big shop, and it was jam-packed with every kind of antique you could think of, all kinds of things. It was a what's that word? That's a consignment retail shop.
Yeah. Hello, Janice.
Hi, Janice. Oh, excuse me, can't see Janice. Yeah. So so we each went our separate ways because we had our own agendas going into the antique shop, and I just went in looking at all kind of things. The girls went off in their little aisles, and is something going on over there, Diana?
Sorry, somebody just came in and she was wondering what I was doing. Are you working? Are you doing your blog? Haunted objects sell, yeah.
Oh, we got a kukui in the room over there. Yes. So anyway, I'm going down the aisles and I'm feeling this weird energy. What is that? It was kind of strange. I just know that there's something in there that's not a happy thing. So I go to the next aisle, and then that sensation got stronger, and I'm thinking, oh man, what is this? I'm looking around trying to figure out what it would be. And I went up the next aisle, and I stopped at the end of the aisle. I stopped at the end of the aisle.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there going, because it felt like, wham, the energy was like all over me, surrounding me. I was going, oh my God, what the heck is this? And then I look over to my left, and over on this one section of this place, because they had all these different sections where people could put their stuff on consignment, put it in their little nooks, so to speak, little area. And so I look over to the left, and I see this dark object sitting on top of a dresser or something. And it had the heaviest negative energy I've ever felt in a piece of furniture. Well, it wasn't a furniture. So I walk a little closer to it and I realize that it's a doll. It's a dark doll with black clothes, some kind of raggedy black hair. And I didn't get that close to it because the closer I got to it, the stronger the energy became. And I was getting that prickly sensation, and I felt it. I feel it in my solar plexus when there's something really dark and heavy in the area. And that's my red flag that, okay, there's something evil in this place. And so I'm looking at this doll, and this doll is looking back at me. And she had, I guess, the glass eyes because it looked really real. And it wanted me to come closer to it, and I was thinking, oh no, it wanted me to touch it. No. Yeah, so I'm backing up. I go, oh no. So I went to go find my sisters. I went to go find Diana and Monica. I go, you guys got to come and see this doll. Come and see this doll. It's creepy. Diana's going, whatever. And Monica goes, yeah. All right. So we walk over there. Yeah. This thing, and there's a thing about dolls. So back in the Victoria era, a lot of people, well, that's what back in the day when seances, they were performing seances, and there was a whole big thing happening and all that stuff. And then there was some people that were afraid to die, and so they didn't want to die, and so they would talk to this whoever, a black witch or sorceress or whatever. And, what can I do? And they said, oh, well, I can put your spirit in a doll if you want. And they had some really pretty dolls back in those days, porcelain dolls or whatever. So, yeah, they would do their little incantations, the black magic or whatever, and the person's spirit would go into a doll at the moment of their death. That's what felt like happened to that black doll that was there. Somebody jumped in it or was put in it or cursed, but the thing was angry as Hades. It was angry, and it wanted revenge, and I wasn't the one.
Right.
We left that place not too long after that, and I said, okay, no dolls. I remember that specifically. That was creepy. That really creeped me out.
So yeah, I mean, and I never really thought about that kind of stuff. I guess the first, the first idea that we even knew about that was, the premier paranormal couple, Ed and Lorraine Warren, made famous the doll Annabelle. which has spawned 3 movies, and you've all seen them probably.
The
And those
Conjuring.
dolls in that movie are like the long hair and the black eyes. And of course, they look haunted and they got a creepy smile and messed up lipstick, so you're going, okay, there's something crazy with that doll. But really, this true story of Annabelle is this doll was just a kind of a large Raggedy Ann doll. It's a very benign looking doll. You wouldn't even guess that was the case with this little thing. And the true story is very different than the Hollywood story in the movies. And basically in the late 60s, early 70s, Ed and Lorraine were doing investigations. This was kind of a new field. So a young woman named Donna, who had received this doll from her mom as a birthday gift. Now, this lady was 28 years old, and she was a nursing student, but her mom saw this at a hobby shop and bought this big old Raggedy Ann doll to give her. And so it was new in the box. I mean, it wasn't like an antique at all. It was a fresh doll. So I have to think that didn't come haunted, but it became haunted, which according to the story, that's pretty much what happened. So once they brought the doll to the apartment, and these were 2 roommate nurses that shared the apartment, the doll started kind of moving around the apartment. They'd go to work, and the doll had been left on the bed of Donna. She, where girls used to put your dolls and stuffed animals on your bed after you made your bed. Well, they would find it in the hallway, laying on its back, or they would find it in another room or the girls' room, or they find it in the kitchen, and they even, were kind of going, what's going on? And they even found the doll in a locked room.
Oh, yeah. That was weird.
That's like, okay, wouldn't that give you like the heebie-jeebies? Like there's something going on.
Yeah.
So, and they even found it leaning against a chair rail, standing up and leaning. And then they even found it kneeling on the chair. And Raggedy Anns are raggedy, soft things. They don't have knees.
They don't. Yeah.
They couldn't even make it kneel on their own. So they got a medium to come in to kind of say, well, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on here with this doll? And the medium confirmed, well, there's a spirit of Annabelle who's in this area, and she's, taken over this doll. And she apparently had been found as a dead little body in the field behind their apartment.
Wait, who was that?
The actual dead spirit was found as a dead child in the apartment building. There's a big field behind there.
Okay.
And that's where they found the dead body. So
it was attached to that doll? Was that her doll?
They're figuring she was floating around. I would say they were thinking that she invaded this doll, and they felt sorry for the doll, and what she was doing was benign kind of stuff, just flopping about the apartment. I guess they were okay with it. They said they even invited her to stay, right? So what do you think of inviting a spirit to stay? Oh, don't go. Stay if you want to. We feel sorry.
That's not a good idea.
I think so.
If an inanimate object suddenly has an attachment, well, you got to think about there's plenty of lost souls that wander the earth, and a lot of them do not want to cross over because they're afraid of what they're going to hell, because maybe they were evil while they were alive, and they do anything to avoid it. So they refuse to cross over, and they hang around. If they can slip into some kind of an inanimate object like a doll, then I would say that's not a good idea anyway to have.
Don't invite them.
Don't invite them in. You don't let them stay. If you have some kind of an entity or a spirit that's, causing problems, and, it's not friendly. I mean, it's being a little bit of like a poltergeist kind of a thing. But if you allow a spirit that should be crossed over on the other side, if you allow them to stay, they're going to end up draining your energy and making you sick, or any of your family members or your children. And it just gets worse. So they try to, woo you into believing that, oh, I'm a good spirit. I ain't going to hurt nobody. No, that's not. Don't do it.
It didn't end there with the flopping around the apartment.
What happened?
they eventually, this little doll, it didn't seem to care for Donna's boyfriend Lou. So Lou would stay over once in a while, and he would hear some noises in the bedroom, and he would creep up to a door and he'd open it, and he'd walk in, and the doll is just kind of sitting in the corner staring at him. And then he suddenly felt like a presence behind him, but if there was no one there, okay.
That he could
so later, the doll there's apparently scratches on his back. So he's the one that had scratches on his back. The doll or the spirit never, attacked the women. So finally, Lou goes to bed and he wakes up and he's like in that paralysis that you hear about. He's frozen.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end of his feet is Annabelle the doll. Well, Annabelle the doll starts rising over his toes, and she's just gliding up his legs, going to his face, and he can't move. And then when she gets to his neck, she starts strangling him, and until he passes out. So he passes out.
Evil.
Yeah. So the next morning, he wakes up and he's definitely, said, that wasn't a dream. This was real. This really happened. And so finally, Donna said, okay. In the meantime, they had been contacting the Warrens, and, the Warrens said, we really should take the doll. And they go, oh, no, he's a good spirit and whatever. Well, after this was the last straw. Scratches, strangulation. So they called the Warrens and they came and got the doll. So she resides in their museum. She's kind of the main feature. And up until just recently, you could have gone to that museum. So if you're interested in seeing actual haunted objects, you could go to the museum. It's called the Warrens Museum of the Occult. And they would do tours. And
hello, Memphis Ghost Hunters.
Yeah, they've been there, but she's passed away now. Ed's been gone a long time, but she's passed away, the last year or two?
Yeah, it's been a couple of years.
The museum is no longer accessible. It's permanently closed. So
that's understandable.
You really can't chase those down.
Just a sec.
Yeah.
Monica's asking if it's difficult to clear a haunted object and who can do it. It depends on how haunted it is. I mean, if it was in the hands of some satanic somebody, I would think that would be very difficult. And I don't know that I would even want to try clearing it. But somebody that has the knowledge and the power to do so can do it. I mean, I've cleared different things. But you can't work with fear as you're trying to get rid of this thing. You can talk to it and you can tell it needs to move on, and you can use prayers, drumming. Again, you can use sage and even Palo Santo, which is another type of smudging material. And so, and if the thing it does not want to budge, then you can call in the bigger forces. You can call in Jesus or Archangel Michael. I work with all of them. Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene. And they will come and assist and get rid of it. And you just, you have to be persistent and you have to command it that it's not allowed to stay and it needs to go, move on. And then the higher powers will assist it and say, okay. And they do it as they need to. Bind it so it cannot use its energy on you. Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Haunted Central Events. So, yeah. So, and then, Ed and
Ed and Lorraine.
They're let's see, they were related to John Saffis. John Saffis has his own show. He has a longtime collector with his own museum, and he's known as the godfather of the paranormal. He's been into it like 43 years or so. You want to go ahead and continue with that, Diana?
Yeah. He had a show called The Haunted Collector. I think it was on Travel Channel.
Yeah.
And you probably can still see all of those episodes, but he and his crew would answer calls that they had something going on in their house. They think something's there. And John Zaffis is a believer that it's probably some kind of haunted object. So they would go in there and they would do the due diligence, check out the home and the area and get some information on it. But ultimately, they would comb through the house, and I can't remember if they had a psychic medium with them that would kind of hone in on which objects are the worst. But sometimes they would use those EMF detectors.
Yeah.
Just place them near something, and then if they go how crazy, then okay, that's got to be it. And then they try to figure out where it came from, find the provenance of it.
Right.
And ultimately, every time he left, he would ask them, do you want to keep it or do you want me to take it? And I will bind it and put it in my own museum is what happens. So ultimately he ended up with a lot of haunted objects. So he does have actually his own website. And you can actually look at some of the things he's collected over time. And you can just see some of them are like pretty little things and just, ordinary stuff. And it's just kind of a crazy. I don't know if I would want to have a haunted collection.
No. And then there's crazy people that buy haunted items, objects. They go on eBay and they bid on haunted objects and then they get it home.
Sure.
And which reminds me about the Dybbuk box.
Oh, you're bringing up that Dybbuk box. Yeah,
actually, that's creepy.
That's its whole other show, but that's super haunted.
Yeah, if you don't know what that is, look it up. There is a movie about it. I watched it a long time ago, and it was based on a true story. But yeah.
But Josh Bagans actually has a museum that everyone can go to. So it's in Las Vegas, so that makes it kind of appealing. And it has his name on it. It's Josh Bagans, The Haunted Museum. So if you can go in there, and he's collected so much. Yeah, Zach Bagans. Thank you, Crystal Moon Rising. Why did I call it Josh? Anyway,
it's Bagan. Bagans.
No, it's Zach. Okay. So anyway, the Haunted Museum in Las Vegas for a fee. You can go in there, and he's got a lot of collections. I think he actually hunts them out, buys them at auction, or he reaches out to get people. He's got Kevorkian's Deathmobile. He's got
Kevorkian.
Yeah.
Do people know who he is?
Yeah, I would assume so. He's the one that would do assisted deaths.
Oh, dignity, death with dignity.
So, and they also have like cauldrons used for bleaching bones, and they also have Charles Manson's cremated bones. He died in 2017, and someone made an effort to go out to the little hillside where his nephew had scattered him, I guess, and grab some bones. So of course, Zach has them, and
that's crazy.
So that's a place where you could go and test your willy-nilly buttons, see if you get the creepers. I don't know. It's not something I would do. I'll go to Vegas for,
No, that's not my idea of a good time.
But I will avoid that. I'll drive by and look at it. But,
take a picture on the way by, the outside of the building.
You go in there because you're so protected on your own.
Yes, you have to protect yourself before you go into any kind of these haunted museums or anybody's houses or businesses that are haunted. You can't just step in there and if you do, I mean, if you don't take the time to protect yourself, you're gonna have problems. You may have a spirit following you home, or a ghost, I should say, following you home, and that could be that would be a bad thing. So, but that's for another show. Yeah.
So no, I wouldn't do that.
No, thank you. So, is that everything that we were going to cover here?
Oh yeah, I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
Haunted objects, and if in the audience, if you just have any kind of sensitivity, you'll feel, and you may have and not recognized it in your past. Walking into someone's home, walking into, we've had a friend in Linwood, and she had inherited her grandfather's little chimey clock, and it was on the mantle. And yeah, she would find the door open all the time. Nobody was in there, and they would test each other. Go, did you do that? Did you do that? No, nobody did it. And so she would close it up, and then the next day it would be open again. So some things may be just your friendly grandpa, but some things are not.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you protect
Monica,
yourself if you go to a haunted object museum?
how do you protect yourself? Um, I use I call on prayers. I use prayers and I sage myself. I build up my energy. You surround yourself with like ultra diamond light and or ultraviolet light, and you're calling in for protection. You have your guides, your ancestors. They will help you stay protected, and you just have to have your spidey sense open, if you want to put it like that. And the moment you feel something is not right, and you start to feel sick or something, you need to step back outside and gather your wits about you. And so, otherwise, the thing is, whatever it is trying to attach itself to you. If you know the place is severely haunted, well, you don't want that to happen. So you got to do what you can for yourself. Rise above the fear, and don't allow it. You command it. It's not welcome, and to leave you in peace, and you know. And if you feel okay to go back inside, then there you go. If not, then don't go in. Listen to your heart. I mean, your mind will trick you, and they can trick you with their mind too. So anyway, well, that was great, and that was a good chance. I'm glad that we had a chance to share our stories with you, and there's more to come. I've had some creepy experiences in a haunted house too, but that's for another time. And we'll talk about a lot of different things: cryptids, UFOs, whatever. So thanks again, and we hope that you will join us on another Wednesday. And in the meantime, thank you, Monica, for showing up and asking questions. That's been great.
Yeah.
So
perfect. Thank you so much.
Continue. Yeah, thank you, everyone. It was been fun. And thank you, Sandy. Have a blessed night, y'all. Take care. Bye for now.